Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hour 15 of Notre Dame Day 2015. You're catching us at a great time. Last night, we kicked off a 29-hour global celebration of all things Notre Dame. So far, we've told impressive stories of Notre Dame students, alumni, parents, friends, families, and fans from across the globe, and we have more to come in the next few minutes and hours. My name is Abby Wellner. I'm a 2005 Notre Dame grad. I'm one of your anchors for this hour, and my love for Notre Dame runs pretty deep. My brother went to school here. My sister-in-law did too, and so did my dad. 1974, he graduated. Texted me earlier to say he was watching and voting, so I'll throw a hi, Dad, out there just in case he is still tuned in. And my co-anchor for this hour now is Megan. You are joining us. You're a Notre Dame alum yourself. You're here with digital media. So excited to have this next hour to spend together.
That's right. I'm excited too. The last two have been fun. Now we have this one coming up. My name's Megan Bastido. I graduated in 2012, like Abby mentioned, working in digital media now in the athletics department, and I get the best job in the world, get to cheer on all of my favorite teams every day. Been to 2 Final Fours with women's basketball, so
not a bad gig. Yeah. Well, we are so excited to have you all joining us, and we're especially fired up for this hour because we have a lot of great stories lined up for everybody. First, we'll head out on location to the Notre Dame Fire Department. Later, we'll chat with Notre Dame President Emeritus Father Edward Monk-Malloy, very special to me. He was one of my professors when I was here. And we'll be traveling all the way to Taiwan to talk with a Notre Dame alum who opened the doors to a career for some current Notre Dame students. Then we'll catch up with an impressive student who started a successful business, and he's only a sophomore. Absolutely an intimidating crowd, I think, at this point.
That's right. They make me feel like I haven't done much.
I know, yeah.
And beyond the great stories we'll be telling today, we have something really special going on. We'll be giving away $1 million over the course of this broadcast. You heard me right, folks, $1 million.
It is a very cool deal. It's part of what you, our viewers, have total control over where this money will be distributed. Each time you log on to NotreDameDay.nd.edu, you can donate $10 or more, and you'll be given 5 votes. The total votes cast during our Notre Dame Day broadcast for student clubs, residence halls, the academy, and so on and so forth will determine what percentage of the $1 million they will receive. So that means that your $10 gift could possibly end up having an impact totaling $100 or more. I get confused every time I try and explain it, so hopefully it's starting to make sense now that we're in our, what did we say, 15 of this broadcast. So the more votes you cast for your favorite academic unit, hall, team, or other organization during Notre Dame Day, the higher the percentage of the $1 million they will receive. I think I said that straight.
Okay. Right. So let's take a moment to not only encourage folks to get online and vote, but also give a shout out to some of those who have done so already.
That's right, Megan. I am so excited to see how things pan out over the next 14 hours that we have left. Let's get this show on the road. We have a reporter live at the Notre Dame Fire Station right now. Cassidy, is it true that Notre Dame is one of the only universities with its very own on-campus fire station?
That's right, Abby. So my name is Cassidy McDonald. I'm here live at Notre Dame's fire station, which is located right on campus, and it serves an average of 15,000 citizens. And the members of the fire department work 24-hour shifts to make sure that everyone is safe on campus. I'm here with Assistant Chief Tim Hepner. Thank you so much, Chief, for being with us. And how long have you been on the force?
In July, I'll be celebrating my 25th anniversary here at the university.
Well, congratulations. So some people might not know that there is a fire department on campus here. So can you tell us a little bit about the history behind that? When did that come to be?
So they used to have fire brigades here on campus, and their jobs were to gather buckets and axes. And then after 1879, when the main building burnt, Father Zahn was charged with starting a fire department. So in 1879, they started their first fire department, full-time fire department. It was run by the priest and the brothers here on campus. And then different events happened. In 1980, they had the St. Ed's fire, and that's when they started hiring civilian firefighters and got away from priests and brothers. And then in 1990 was the last of the priests and the brothers that worked in the fire department, and it's all civilians now.
And how many firefighters work out of the station?
So we have 12 full-time firefighters, and then we have 3 chiefs, 2 assistant chiefs, and the fire chief. And then we have 3 technicians that work for us, and then our administrative assistant.
Wow, and what sort of calls do you all respond to?
So our first charge is medical and fire type incident calls. not a lot of fires on campus. We're very proactive in fire prevention. So we're mostly alarms and investigation type alarms.
Great, and how many calls do you respond to each year?
So we're just up over 1,500 calls a year. We're going to be pushing close to 2,000 here in the next year or so.
Wow, well, thank you so much for keeping our campus safe. Now I'm going to send it back to you guys in the studio. Thanks.
Thanks, Cassidy. Joining me now live in the studio is Valerie Sayers. She's the award-winning author of 6 novels. Her stories and essays have appeared in publications like the New York Times and the Washington Post, and she's a creative writing professor here at Notre Dame. Welcome to the show, Valerie.
Thanks so much.
All right, well, let's hit the ground running. Tell me a little bit about what you do.
I write novels, and I spend much of my time desperately seeking the time to write novels. It's hard to get a long enough stretch in a teaching day, but on the other hand, I have the perfect job. It's a great complement to the solitude of writing.
Well, you clearly find the time because you have done so well, and you have a new book that's out right now, The Powers, is that correct?
The Powers,
Tell
yes.
us a little bit about The Powers.
The Powers is set in 1941, which baseball fans will recognize as the year of Joe DiMaggio's famous hitting streak of 56 games. But it was also the year when the United States was debating whether to enter World War II. So it's very much a book that explores the idea of heroism. We latched on to Joe DiMaggio as a hero, but also explores the idea of the anxiety of war and the tremendous moral struggle that went on for people like Dorothy Day, who is a character in the book, as they struggled to decide whether war was ever justified.
Historical fiction, am I guessing?
I think we could call it historical fiction.
Okay, just kidding. It's my favorite genre. So now you've got me sold. I'm also a huge baseball fan, so this sounds like a book that'll speak to a lot of people. Are you a baseball fan?
I am a baseball fan. I grew up a Yankee fan in coastal South Carolina, which completely defined who I was.
All right. Well, is this a common theme we'll see running through a number of your books, or?
Actually, no. It was anomalous. I had written a couple of short stories about baseball. I actually started them after I had cancer. And you know, cancer is such a traumatizing illness. We see our life flash before us. I wanted something just completely releasing and joyful, and that was baseball for me.
And you found it, and I hope it was healing as well.
It absolutely. But then, of course, I had to take it to World War II and pacifism, and it kind of went beyond joyful at that point, as good writing always does.
Well, you have to have some lows to appreciate the highs, right?
Exactly.
And what are you working on next?
Now I'm working on a novel called The Last Days of Peace and Love, or Real Estate. And it's about Brooklyn real estate over the course of 50 years, from the 1970s to the future.
Oh, well, that sounds like another exciting book. My
hope
reading
so.
list is getting
I hope
longer.
so.
Maybe I'll finish The Powers in time to see this one on the shelves.
That's right. It's taking me quite a long time. I think you have time to get The Powers in.
Okay, terrific. I will put that one on my list and then put the other one on for later. And you mentioned that there's a little bit of a struggle to find all of the time to do everything you want to do, to write and to be a professor. How do you balance the two?
I put writing first. That is, I wake up first thing in the morning, take a long walk with the dog to clear my head and enter a kind of state of meditation, and try to grab those earliest hours first. The department sometimes outsmarts me with an 8 o'clock meeting, but if I can avoid an 8 o'clock meeting, I'm in business, and I grab whatever I can get and feel elated for the rest of the day.
Well, your need to avoid the 8 o'clock meetings is now documented, so no one can
That's right.
tell you that you never spoke up.
I'm glad to have it on record.
Before we let you go, you've had some time here as a professor, and you've taught a number of students and brought so much joy to them. Have they, in turn, shown you the results of your work and your investment in them? Have you had any students who've become authors?
Oh, I've had so many students who've become successful authors. I'm only terrified of leaving some out. But I should certainly mention at least one, Lindsay Stark, whose brand brand new novel, Noah's Wife, comes out this fall from Putnam. She began it as an MFA novella and rewrote it and polished it and really, really honed it. And now a major New York house is bringing it out.
And what a tremendous influence you have had on her and so many students. Thank you so much, Valerie. We really appreciate you joining us this morning. It was a little past 8 a.m., so we didn't quite qualify for that 8 a.m. interruptive meeting.
That's exactly right. My great pleasure.
Thank you so much, and we're going to head over to Megan.
Thanks, Abby. Our next guest is joining us now from Nashville, Tennessee. Molly Lalonde, a 2006 Notre Dame graduate. Molly dominated the set of Jeopardy for 4 shows last season. Her love of trivia and ability to think quickly on her feet helped her win thousands of dollars, and she's here with us today. Thanks for joining us, Molly.
Having me.
Okay, so you've got to tell me this story. I heard that you initially ignored the call from Jeopardy producers who were inviting you on the show. Can you talk to us about that a little bit?
Sure. I was in class at the time, and I kept seeing a California area code show up and just ignored it. And then my husband actually texted me and said, you know, you need to check your messages right now. So I ran out of class and got the message from Jeopardy. So it was kind of sad to miss it at the time, but now I actually have a great message on my phone, which is a great, story that I can share with people.
Well, it's good to know that you were at least in class, not skipping class and on your phone in the middle of class for that. You say it yourself, you love trivia, and that's what helped you on the show so much. What other sorts of preparation did you have? Any involvement in the past that helped you out?
Sure. I think I was an English major as an undergrad, so that was a big help just as far as exposing me to a lot of books and novels. I also worked for The Observer in the scene section, so I got to see a lot of movies and TV shows and music. And then just in general, reading a lot has been a huge help. And as soon as I found out that I was going to be on Jeopardy, I actually started studying everything I could get my hands on. I listened to lectures on tape in my car. I read books about the presidents, books about mythology. So it was kind of nice to, once I actually get on the show, really see what kinds of things helped me and to kind of feel like a lot of that time and dedication paid off, in addition to just things, like watching TV or movies that ended up actually winning me some money instead of just being a waste of time.
And what was your strategy on the show? Did you have a certain strategy that you kept when you were there?
Well, in the first game, my strategy was to not be in the negative so that I could play in Final Jeopardy, to be honest, because I wasn't sure how I would do. I think after that, it really became a matter of, figuring out how to buzz in correctly. And then I think as I got a little more comfortable, for me, it really became playing Jeopardy the way I like it, like to watch it at home, basically, which is, not jumping around the board, kind of going through the categories from smallest amount to largest amount. And then I think at a certain point, just, not being afraid to gamble a little bit on, either Daily Doubles or in Final Jeopardy.
And are you allowed to tell us how much you won during your time?
Yes. I won $55,300.
Not a bad. I need to get on Jeopardy, I think. What was your final Jeopardy question?
Sorry?
What was your final question? Do you remember?
Oh, on which show? The first one?
Yes.
I can't remember the question, but I guess I can remember the question because it was, what is the Statue of Liberty? I can't remember what the prompt was that got me there, but I will definitely always remember the feeling of looking at the question and knowing that I knew the answer and that I knew how to spell the answer, more importantly, so that I wouldn't embarrass myself.
Well, that's got to be a good feeling when that final question comes in. You know the right answer and get to write it down. Well, thanks so much for being with us, Molly. I go to trivia night every once in a while, so I'll have to give you a call when I have the questions come up there.
Absolutely. I am always down for trivia.
All right, thanks so much. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we'll be talking to Father Monk Malloy, the third longest serving president in Notre Dame's 172-year history. So stick with us. See you in a few.
The birth of your child is supposed to be the most joyous event in your life. But for me and my wife, the delivery of our second son, Nicholas, quickly turned into a nightmare.
While in labor, Angela Knight suffered an embolism. After an emergency C-section was successfully performed, she began to display uncontrolled bleeding. It became clear that if we didn't get her the right type of blood transfusion quickly, she wasn't going to make it.
I was in shock. At the same moment, my newborn son was taking his first breath. Doctors were telling me my wife was bleeding to death.
At the University of Notre Dame's Keck Center for Transgene Research, Professor Frank Castellino has developed cutting-edge blood analysis technology to help save the lives of trauma patients.
Physicians treating acute trauma-related bleeding need to make quick and accurate decisions as to what products to give and when to give them. The technology that we developed provides rapid real-time measurements, enabling the correct blood products to be delivered to each patient.
In the case of Angela Knight, we were able to use Professor Castellino's work to properly transfuse her with the correct blood products, stop the bleeding, and ultimately save her life.
It wasn't until 4 days after his birth that I finally got to see Nicholas. If not for the research done at Notre Dame, I never would have had the opportunity to hold my son.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting to improve trauma care.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. My name is Abby Wellner. I'm from the class of 2005, and I'm joined now by a very special guest, Notre Dame's 16th president, Father Edward Monk Malloy. Thanks so much for being with us here today, Monk. And I have to say, this is a very, very special interview for me because it's been, we were just trying to talk, I was trying to count up the years. It's been 13 or 14 years since I was a freshman, but I was in your freshman seminar many moons ago.
One of my all-time greats.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate that. You know what, I'm glad that you said that. My dad's watching, so I think he feels better about the investment right about now. And tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. You've had a few years that you have been out of the presidential spotlight, but that hasn't taken you too far from your roots here at Notre Dame. You're still living in Sorin?
I'm still living in Sorin. I still teach first-year seminar. I'm on 12 boards. I'm finishing volume 3 of my memoir. And I do give a lot of talks and do various things for the university, and it's a great life.
So I will not complain in this interview about being busy. Obviously, you've got a lot going on. And we're going to go back a little ways. I want you to tell everyone the story of how you wound up with this nickname that we know you by so well. How did you wind up being called Monk?
I was in the 3rd or 4th grade, and in my neighborhood was a kid named Bunky Collie. And he was a little bit older. His brothers were my age, and we would go by each other on the way to school. And I started calling him Bunk to pretend I had a closer relationship with him than I did. So eventually, he started looking for a comeback, and he tried various possibilities, and he settled on Monk as a rhyme with Bunk and was alliterative with Malloy. So his brothers started calling me that in school. My mother hated it at first, but a couple years later, one of my cousins gave me a much more despicable nickname. So she started calling me Monk, and through athletics primarily, it's stuck with me ever since, and that's the only name I go by now.
Pick the least of the evils, I guess.
That's
Mom
right.
did. All right, and you mentioned athletics. You were a basketball player.
I was.
How did you wind up at Notre Dame? Did that have any role in it?
Well, I was recruited by about 50 to 60 schools. I was on the #1 team in the country in high school. We won my senior year, and the next year they won 55 straight games. So that was on a record, and so we got a lot of attention. I came out to Notre Dame for my regular visit, and I really liked the 2 people who hosted me. I felt comfortable here, and when I went home, I said, that's my school.
I think we're all very grateful to those 2 people who hosted you and made such a good impression for all the good you've done for this university. We're indebted to them for sure. And now you wound up at Notre Dame. Was the priesthood something in the back of your mind at that time, or even at the forefront?
When I was in high school, one of the priests there, who was an Augustinian, suggested that I go in the seminary. I said, I'm not ready. I need to go to college. I want to go away from home. I want to play basketball. But when I was here, I went on a summer service project to Mexico. And we went to a place called Cristo Rey, where there's a big statue of Christ the King. And while I was there, everybody else was distracted. I was looking out over the countryside, and I just had this sense of inner calm. I felt a clarification, a sense of commitment to becoming a priest. Didn't hear voices or see a vision or anything, but kind of a certitude. So my senior year, I consulted with one of the priests and eventually applied, was accepted, and I've never had any doubts that that was what I was called to do.
And did you ever leave the university, or have you been here throughout?
Well, I went to graduate school. We had some of our seminary was in D.C. and some in Minnesota, but then I went to graduate school at Vanderbilt, did my PhD there. But separate from that, and 1 year at sabbatical in California, and then sabbatical after I stepped down as president, I've been here ever since.
And you've made such an impact here on campus, but your impact more recently, and I guess it's been, 7, 8 years since you made a life-saving decision for a member of your own family as well as another person's family to donate a kidney. In 2008, you donated a kidney as part of a swap. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like?
Well, my nephew, Johnny Rorapaw, was seemingly in good health, and all of a sudden he had kidney failure, and he was on dialysis 3 times a week. And his mother, my sister, kept looking for a potential donor. And eventually she said to me, would you be willing to step forward? And I said, I thought I was too old. But anyway, I went forward at Johns Hopkins, went through the rounds of tests. It was interesting, one of the psychiatrists there, who happened to be Jewish, he had to make sure that I had the freedom to make this choice. And so we ended up chatting about the books that I'd written and authors that we shared in common. So I passed muster with him.
He determined you were of sound mind and could make the decision.
Sound mind. And they had a test on religious motivation, which I did okay on.
Mm-hmm. It would have been bad to fail.
We set a date, and about 3 weeks beforehand, I got a call from one of the doctors, and he said, how about a swap? I said, why would we want to do a swap? Because I was compatible with my nephew. And they said, we have a mother and son who are incompatible with each other but compatible with you. And if you give your kidney to the mother, who's in her 60s, her son, who's in his 30s, will give it to your nephew, who's in about 40. So your nephew will get a younger kidney, and you'll be able to give it to the mother because you're closer in age. So we did it. We agreed to it. And it was just an amazing experience. We met them before we left the hospital. And everybody's in good health, and so it was a great experience for me. So I used to give a lot of talks on possibility of kidney donation. And the question is, why do we have 2 kidneys when we only need 1? And the answer is so we can give one away.
And you made sure that that proves true. Well, and it's good to know. And you said everyone's doing well. Your nephew is back to
Everybody's doing very well. And I can't take pain medicines that have aspirin in them. And I'm not supposed to put salt on anything. Other than that, I've had no repercussions since then.
I guess a small price to pay, and we're fortunate to still have you here on campus, yourself in good health. And not only that, you're still living in Soren, as I understand it. You said 35 years?
35 years.
And that's incredible, living in the same place for 35 years, let alone in a dorm, teaching a class. Why is it important to you that you have this very intimate connection still with the student body here at Notre Dame, that you live among them and teach classes?
I've always loved teaching. I didn't want to give that up. So my first year I didn't teach, the first year as president, and then I figured out my schedule and determined that Sunday night was the best time. And because it was also compatible with doing hall masses in the evening on Sunday. So all my presidential years I taught and lived in the dorm. The trustees had a bet that I wasn't going to last more than 6 months in the dorm after I was elected. I'm still there.
Did that bet compound over the years? Because you're getting to be a wealthy man if that's the case.
Yeah, no, it's part of the mission of Holy Cross, I think. It's kind of our characteristic style to live with the students and to do multiple things simultaneously, try to do them all as well as we can. So that's been my mission in life.
And you've succeeded quite well. Thank you so much, Father Malloy. And it's been a pleasure catching up with you. I could talk to you for hours, but I'm required to toss it back to someone else. So we'll get back to Megan. She's at the anchor desk.
Thanks, Abby. I'm joined now by David Wong, who's joining us from Taiwan. David actually used a program founded by 2 Notre Dame students called Promazo to hire student consultants to work remotely for his company. David, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start first talking about Promazo. Can you explain what it is and a little bit about how it works?
Okay, actually a student called Max Brown, he came to Taiwan and he asked me if I have a few minutes for coffee with him. So I had a coffee with him actually down the stairs at Taipei 101 Starbucks. And then he asked about my opinion, whether I know anybody who wanted to work with students in doing startups. And I said, wow, that's a great idea. Maybe I will be able to hear a little bit more about what this program is. And then he explained to me about the student initiating the startup companies. And I thought that would be a really great thing if we can do it internationally through Skype and through international experiences that I have and through the alumni network that I have with Notre Dame. So I offered to help. And then later, Max went back to Notre Dame and he contacted me and asked me about my intention, and I affirmed that my intention was to help Notre Dame students and see if we can make something out of South Bend with my limited experience in the business world. So that's how it gets started.
Great, and you just kind of talked about this. What made you decide to use this program maybe opposed to some of the other more traditional fashions of searching for students and for workers? What are some of the advantages?
Well, actually I love Notre Dame and I have been a graduate of Notre Dame, so I think this is a really great way to pay back to the university and have a good relationship with the university. So that's how I see what is good for mutually instead of advantaging. In answer your questions, I think Notre Dame students also are very smart and very humble and very ethical. And I think this would make me wanting to help.
Great. Well, thanks so much for joining us today here on ND Day, all the way from Taiwan. And we'll take a short commercial break and be right back with you in a minute.
Every day, I'm reminded of what this earthquake has done to the people of my country. Millions of people are still displaced, and there's a constant threat of epidemics. To save lives, we need to quickly and accurately diagnose disease. But the longer it takes, the more people will suffer.
At the University of Notre Dame's Advanced Diagnostics and Therapeutics Initiative, Dr. Chia Chang is working to address the challenges faced by medical field workers.
In post-disaster areas like Haiti and in most of the developing world, the medical technologies that we use to diagnose diseases simply cannot be used. They're either too bulky or they're too expensive.
Through the use of cutting-edge biochip technology, Dr. Chang is developing a handheld diagnostic device that can be programmed to detect the DNA of bacteria and viruses that cause specific diseases.
With this handheld device, people anywhere in the world should be able to go out irrespective of their wealth and know instantly what's troubling them and exactly what kind of medication they need.
The work being done at Notre Dame is so important because it gives doctors like me a better way to treat the people I care for.
First-rate medical care is a fundamental right for every person. And our hope is that our technology can make this a reality for everybody.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting for innovative healthcare.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Abby Wellner, class of 2005, and I'm one of your hosts this hour. I am here with Marianne Kaur, Vice President and General Counsel of the University, and a member of one of the first undergraduate classes to include women at the University of Notre Dame. So I guess I have to start off with a thank you to Marianne for paving the way. Much appreciated. My dad graduated in '74, and so we always joke, more we're very serious. He was in Farley and then moved to Lyons, and both of his dorms were taken over by women.
That's right.
And he was very bitter about women being at Notre Dame until his daughter was the first of his kids to get in. So thank you so much for everything that you did. Was it hard making that decision to come here?
No, not at all. You know, I applied because Notre Dame was just going co-ed, and I wanted to see if I had a chance to get in, and I came out here on a visit with my parents and just loved it. So after that, it was just no question in my mind.
I've heard that from so many people, and it's good to know that from the beginning, everybody kind of has that sense. You walk on campus, and this is the place.
Right.
And we're so fortunate to have had you here as an undergrad, and then to stay on. What made you make the decision to stay at Notre Dame once you were here?
Well, actually, I didn't. I've only been back about 6 years. I went on to law school. I went to Duke for law school, and I practiced with a big corporate law firm in Washington, D.C. And then before coming, I was back in Philadelphia, where I'm from, for a few years. And then before coming here, I was 13 years in-house at a big corporation headquartered in Rhode Island. So, and then just out of the blue, got a call. And once again, you know, Notre Dame.
It's like a magnet.
It is. It's like we all have a little chip in our head.
We
that brings us back.
We do. And going back to when you were a student here, in one of the first women classes to graduate, what was your experience like? Did you feel welcomed?
Yes, very much. I mean, I think that people, you know, there were things now I look back on, I think, well, that was odd. But at the time, we just kind of rolled with the punches, and everybody wanted to make this work and was going out of their way to try to make it welcoming for us. It was great.
And how hard was the decision to leave what you were doing and come back?
You know, I mean, I gave it some thought because I was very happy with where I was. But coming here and meeting Father John, who I think is just a terrific leader, I thought this is something I really want to do. And once I came out and had those meetings, there was just no question again in my mind. Notre Dame has that magic.
And what has your last 6 years been like?
Oh, it's been fun, exciting, challenging, interesting, and all Notre Dame.
All right, so I have to think back. When you were here as a student, was Father Ted the president?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and so then you were here at such a pivotal time in the last year to witness now the celebration of everything that he has done. What has that been like for you?
It was just overwhelming. It really was. You know, I was so lucky when I came back to get to know him a little bit more again. I had met him a few times undergrad, but then just to see him and just be so aware of the effect he continued to have here. And then, as you said, the celebration of his life. It truly was just a wonderful celebration.
And what are the lessons that he taught you that you apply on a daily basis, the lessons that you think back to?
I think that he, you know, there was such a great moral compass there. And I think that his concern for others came across all the time in his speeches. And I think, you know, I hope I can try to keep those lessons in mind.
And it certainly sounds like you do. Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Notre Dame on a daily basis.
So as the general counsel, I'm responsible for all the legal matters. But I have a terrific team. I've got 6 lawyers working in the office with us, as well as 3 other legal professionals. And so it's everything from contracts to litigation to just general counsel, which is my title. Just advising people, trying to, especially the leadership of the university.
And so that moral compass that Father Ted instilled is
comes in handy.
Helpful. And what has it been like for you being back? And you've stayed for 6 years now. Do you feel still that this is a home for you?
Absolutely. You know, it really is. I remember when I got here, Father John, my boss, had sent me flowers and said, "Welcome home." And there really is that sense here of coming home. And I always came back. 6 of my brothers and sisters came here as well. So we're a Notre Dame family. I have nieces and nephews here, and it does always feel like home.
It really does run through the blood in
does.
families, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Once you're on campus, it's hard to get off, obviously.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne, for joining us.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time this morning. You have some important work to get back to, we know, but we appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your busy day to tell us about your experience here. And so now we are going to have, let's see here, we are going to take a break, so we'll be right back.
someone who has been diagnosed with breast cancer. I just never thought it would be me. Originally, I thought after being diagnosed that my doctors would be able to tell me, this is what's wrong with you, this is how you fix it. But I learned that ultimately the decision for my own treatment was up to me, which was very hard.
1 in every 8 women in the United States will face breast cancer at some time in their lives. At the University of Notre Dame, Dr. Stephen Biekler is working to improve the accuracy of information these patients receive about their diagnosis.
The biggest challenge in treating breast cancer is that there are so many different subtypes of the disease. To most effectively treat the patient, we need to understand her specific cancer.
By combining mathematics and molecular biology, Dr. Biekler has developed a genomic test that pinpoints the behavior of a patient's cancer and measures the threat that it will spread throughout the body.
Dr. Biekler's work is important in that it can transform the way that we approach breast cancer, because our goal is to have targeted therapy for each patient so that we can provide her the best chance for a cure.
My own battle with breast cancer has changed my life. I've now decided to be an applied math major and have begun working in Dr. Biekler's lab. And I feel so lucky that I'm able to use whatever misfortune I face to help other people.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting to beat breast cancer.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm here with Sharon Stack, a professor of chemistry and biochemistry here at Notre Dame and the director of the Harper Cancer Research Institute. Before coming to Notre Dame, she taught at Duke, Northwestern, and the University of Missouri, focusing heavily on cancer research at these locations, and she's now here leading the charge in cancer research through her work done at Harper. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's get right into it. I want to hear about your research, but first I want to know a little bit about how you got to where you are. Tell us, what started your interest in cancer research?
So my interest was personal and professional. So I lost my dad to cancer when I was still a student, and I think that there's a lot of people, it still gets me emotional. There's a lot of people that couldn't say that in their own family. And then professionally, cancer is a very complicated disease. It's not just one disease, it's a series of diseases, and it's a really interesting intellectual challenge as well.
And like you said, it's something that affects so many people, so it's such great research to be doing. You were at Northwestern, Duke, like we mentioned, a few prestigious schools. What prompted you to come start more research here at Notre Dame?
Yeah, so there was an opportunity at Notre Dame to start a brand new, from the ground up, basic cancer research institute, and that's really an unprecedented opportunity for somebody like me to start something from the ground up and bring in really the different type of intellectual strength that's here at Notre Dame to focus on cancer.
And what kind of things about Notre Dame and about the Harper Cancer Research Institute make it unique?
I think the most unique thing about Harper is that collaboration is our foundational principle. And what I mean by that is that we're able to get researchers from all different disciplines, not just cancer biology, not just chemistry, but physics, engineering, mathematics. The video with Steve Biekler was just on, I noticed, as we were rounding up to this. And these kind of approaches are unique at Harper.
Yeah, like you said, that video was a great segue into this segment. Why is cross-discipline collaboration? What makes that so important, and what are some of the advantages?
Yeah, so in some cancer types we've made a lot of progress. We've made tremendous progress in breast cancer, for example, but in some other cancers, like I lost my dad to lung cancer in the mid-'80s, and at that time the survival rate from lung cancer was 13%. So in the intervening 30 years, it's only gone up 3%. It's only 16% now. So in many disciplines, what we're doing just isn't working. So that tells me that although I like to approach cancer in a certain way, what we're doing isn't working. We need to do something different and bring some different minds into the problem.
What's the goal for the future for Harper?
Ideally, I'd like to be out of work. If I was out of work, that means that we've cured cancer. The goal is to really bring the unique Notre Dame spirit to fight cancer.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's incredible to know that you have such innovative and groundbreaking research right here on campus at Notre Dame. Let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
My ancestors were brought here as slaves, and I grew up under apartheid, where the color of one's skin still determined the value of one's life. I spoke out against it and was thrown in jail. In prison, there was people of different religious backgrounds, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and during this very difficult times when we were being tortured, we used to share with each other prayers. For me, that was a sign that God's Spirit dwells in all of us. And it made me believe that one of the ways of fighting apartheid was not merely to cross cultural divides, but also religious divides.
After his release from prison in 1976, Rashid Omar became an interfaith leader in the nonviolent struggle against apartheid.
Our country nearly did go up in flames. And it is due to people like Rashid that we pulled back from the edge of the precipice.
Today, Rashid Omar continues his work as an interreligious peace builder, both as a Muslim imam in his native South Africa and as a peace studies scholar at the University of Notre Dame's Kroc Institute.
What I try to impart to my students is that there's no way that a peace builder can go out into the world without understanding how religion contributes towards conflict and violence. And more importantly, how religion also can be a resource for building peace.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting for peace among religions.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Welcome back. Our next guest is Dr. Manny Villafana. He's a giant in the medical device supply industry, revolutionizing the world of cardiac surgery, and has been wildly successful as an entrepreneur. He is also a proud Notre Dame parent. Thanks so much for joining us today, Manny. We appreciate you taking the time. And we're going to talk all about these interesting devices in front of us here in a second. But first and foremost, you're a Notre Dame dad.
Yes, my daughter Elisa, freshman, for some reason wants to get into science, and in fact is now a pre-med student here and loving it.
Well, and Dad might have had some influence in that, I am guessing.
Do the best you can, reach for the most you can, and she did. She reached for Notre Dame and she got in here.
And you've had kids who have studied at many different universities.
Yes.
What drew you and your daughter to consider Notre Dame for her?
I think you have to ask her. She wanted to go to what she felt was the best she reached for. She actually applied to 12 different universities, got into all 12, was accepted to all 12, but at the final day she said, I want to go to the University of Notre Dame. I want to be a domer, and she's here. She's fighting and struggling, but she's doing a good job.
And she's a freshman this year. Is that enough time for you to grow attached to the university?
Already, already.
All right, well, I'm going to have to look, I apologize, I'm going to look down at my notes so that I don't mispronounce any of these. You're recognized worldwide in the field of cardiac surgery for the development of the St. Jude heart valve. What's it like knowing that people are walking around with something that you created, keeping them alive?
It is, it's a marvelous thing. I was just telling this morning to one of the staff members here at Notre Dame that on the first surgery, I remember so clearly that during the operation, they took out of this patient a diseased heart valve, okay? And they just took it out, boom, they put it in the garbage can. And all was left behind was a hole. And I realized that the product that they were going to put into her was something that I made and invented and was going to keep her alive. And that was the first implant of the St. Jude heart valve back in October of 1977.
So I'm sure there are many people watching right now who are incredibly grateful for the advances that you have made. And speaking of that, we're going to take a look. You brought some of these devices with you, and I want to first point out this right here, which is what?
This is a pacemaker made by the same person that probably made your, first of all, your light bulbs, your washing machine, your dryer, your stove. It was made by General Electric back in the 1970s. At that time, pacemakers were made simply to stimulate the heart, to keep it going, and they were usually about the size of a hockey puck. but they only lasted about 12 to 18 months. We later came up and developed the first lithium-powered pacemakers, which allowed us to make very, very small pacemakers like this, okay, and they would last 10, 20, 30 years. In fact, the very first pacemaker that I have is still running, and it's now 42 years old.
Wow. So you've seen a number of advances and helped initiate a number of advances in the time you've been in the industry.
Right. We continue to do a lot of work in the cardiac area. Pacemakers, heart valves were things that we developed. We're now presently trying to develop a system where we might improve bypass surgery. We have a company called Kips Bay Medical, and named after the boys club that I grew up in. But we continue to work and try to improve the health and welfare of a lot of patients, including pediatric patients. And I know, Abby, that you do some work with children. And here is the world's smallest heart valve. I don't know if the camera can pick that up. It's the smallest heart valve. It's an ATS valve. One of my companies was ATS Medical and developed this very, very small valve, which can be used in a small person, a small lady, but primarily for a baby. The youngest patients that I remember having this valve was only 9 weeks old.
It is incredible. I work in, as you mentioned, a children's hospital, and to see the advances that have come about because of this technology and the lives that have been saved, it really is extraordinary. And that's me saying it from an outsider's perspective. I'm sure you've seen the look of gratitude on an individual, many a parent's face over the years.
Sure. I remember very clearly when we were doing the first lithium pacemakers, there was a young lady about 11 years old who was getting her 7th pacemakers. And remember, again, they were about the size of a hockey puck, and they would only last 12 to 18 months. So she was going to get her 7th pacemaker, and I looked at her and I said, believe it or not, I may not see you for another 10 years. And it's true. We'd lasted much more than 10 years, and didn't see her again, but she was well.
Well, Manny, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're so grateful to have you as part of the Notre Dame family and to share your knowledge with us. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun.
All right.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. And we're going to take a quick commercial break, but we'll be back soon to tell you the story of a student whose brother with special needs inspired him to create a very successful business, and he's only a sophomore. Stay tuned for that.
When I was 9 years old, political violence forced my family to flee Colombia. We left behind everything we had and everyone we knew.
Gracias porque tú eres un Dios misericordioso y siempre nos has protegido.
My father was an engineer, but in America, he had to work a minimum wage job. Amen. No one in my family spoke English. All of our clothes and our car came from local charities. Without the goodwill of others, we would not have been able to get through those tough times. And that's something I've never forgotten.
Luis Llanos is a mechanical engineering major at Notre Dame and a member of ND-SEED, a chapter of Bridges to Prosperity, a nonprofit organization that builds bridges in impoverished areas.
In lots of rural communities, rivers rise and flood and isolate people for weeks at a time. Children can't get to school, and families can't get the medical care they need.
Since 2008, ND-SEED has built bridges in Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. Notre Dame undergraduates fundraise the cost of the entire project, as well as lead the design and 6 to 8 week construction process.
Going down there and having something start up as an idea, as a design, and then being able to work to something so concrete was so satisfying for me.
It's not just 7 students going down to a community to build a bridge for them. They're building a bridge with them.
El puente es una gran cosa. Ahora pues pueden mis hijos cruzar sin temor que el río se me los vaya a arrastrar.
When people ask me what I am most proud of in my life, I can always take out my phone and show them a picture of the bridge. It taught me that I don't have to wait to graduate to make a real difference in people's lives.
The University of Notre Dame asks, what would you fight for?
Fighting to build bridges.
We are the Fighting Irish.
Welcome back to Notre Dame Day. I'm Megan Bastido, class of 2012, and I'm here with Neil Jones. Neil is a Notre Dame sophomore who already has the title of business owner under his belt. He's in the midst of securing a licensing agreement with the university and really has a great story to tell, so thanks for being with us here this morning. We'll get into your business, but first I want to hear a little bit about your family. Talk about your family.
Yeah, so I have an older sister who is actually going to be married in June, which is super exciting for us. Then also I have a little brother who is 18. He just went to prom on Saturday night, and so he actually has Down syndrome, and that's had a huge impact on my life.
And talk a little bit about, with your brother, how did he help influence you choosing this career path here at Notre Dame?
Exactly. So basically, just by chance, I've had all the opportunities in the world, and just because of how it is, Dan hasn't been able to have the same opportunities that I've had. So, over the past 2 to 3 years, I've been having these conversations with my parents, basically like, what's Dan going to do after high school? Because there's so few fulfilling employment opportunities for individuals with special needs. So that has really, honestly, shaped my career path here at Notre Dame. Because I came in, I'm like, Notre Dame is a huge opportunity with a huge alumni network where, I have an opportunity to create something really, really special for Dan and other people with special needs. So I came in knowing that if there's a chance for me to start something to where I could accomplish that goal, I was going to go for it.
Oh, that's awesome. And tell us a little bit about your business. I see you have some examples here, but tell us a little bit about the business.
So it's interesting. So a lot of people are like, why phone cases? And my answer is, why not? Because, kind of my reasoning for starting the company is called Engraved Traditions. So here's one of the color examples. I was looking for a new Notre Dame phone case. None of them were really unique. None of them really said Notre Dame. I went to the bookstore and I just didn't really, see anything I liked. So I decided to kind of come up with an idea. I wanted kind of a wood engraved phone case. Found a manufacturer that could make them for me, and kind of stumbled on this huge unmet demand. My buddies, right? Did you buy it at the bookstore? I really want one. I'm like, well, actually, I just kind of had one made for me. So, I recognized a huge opportunity, and I was like, wow, this is something I could really create something special.
I go through phone cases like every week, so it is a huge demand. You work a lot with the Logan Center here in South Bend. Talk a little bit about what you do with them and what their role has been with your time here.
Yeah, so the Logan Center has played a huge role in Engraved Traditions' mission. So currently, because I'm trying to have a lean startup and kind of fund the business with cash from my customers, I don't want to take on too much fixed initially to where, I could hire individuals with special needs, right off the gate, because you need to keep it as lean as possible. Like, I'm storing my cases under my dorm room bed, I'm shipping them out of my room. So currently we donate $1 to the Logan Center for every case sold, and I want our social mission to be a part of our brand. I want that to be the face of our brand. So the Logan Center has made it possible for me to fulfill that mission, before actually hiring our first employee.
Awesome. And what can we expect to see in the future, near future, I guess?
In the near future, so we're expanding to other schools. The goal is to get to Ohio State and Stanford before football season, because that's where we're going to see the most growth. And the more I'm able to grow this and the more we're able to scale it, the more social impact we can have. So that's honestly the motivation, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to say that I helped out my little brother, because that's the way my parents raised me. We look out for each other, and I think a lot of people here at Notre Dame recognize that it's an important goal, and they've been behind our mission the whole time.
Well, certainly a great idea, and best of luck to you here in the future as you finish up at Notre Dame. Classes end this week, like we were talking about, so I know you're busy with that. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much. And then a quick note, so if you just go to our Facebook page, again, it's Engraved Traditions. You can find the link to our e-commerce presence, and our cases make the perfect gift to a graduating senior and incoming freshman. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Great, thanks, Neil. And we're going to go back to the social media lounge here now and get an update on what's going on over there. Jonathan, are you over there in the social media lounge?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. I know on the West Coast, they're just about waking up right now. So good morning and happy Notre Dame Day to everyone tuning in from around the world. Thanks to everyone that's made a gift so far. Over 8,600 gifts this year. We've doubled, we're getting close to doubling our haul from last year, which is just incredible. It's an incredible day. And as you can see from the story that just aired, so many of our students now are dreaming big dreams. They want to do big things in the world of business, medicine, service. Those big dreams often are cultivated in the clubs that they get involved with when they're students, in the robust academic programs that they immerse themselves in here as part of the Notre Dame experience. And that's what we're celebrating here on Notre Dame Day. We're giving you the power to identify those areas that mean a lot to you, those areas that can foster those bold dreams and help get them a share of our $1 million challenge fund. This hour I want to focus on our athletic teams. Many of them, they go on trips around the world where they're able to make a difference in communities as well as competing against international squads. They have needs when it comes to equipment, and so they are eligible for your votes on Notre Dame Day. At the top of the list right now, some areas that are involved with athletics. Women's soccer, doing so well at the top, 375 votes. They're number 14 overall in the overall leaderboard. If the contest ended right now, they would receive over $12,000. The Band of the Fighting Irish, the greatest band in the land, as my colleague Craig Horvath, who's coming up in a bit, loves to point out, has 301 votes so far. They would get $10,000 if the voting ended right now. Fencing is on the list too. Rowing are huge champions of last year's broadcast. If you remember, they're certainly in the mix. It's anyone's game. So all of our former student athletes out there, you remember what the experience was like. You remember the kind of relationships that you fostered as part of those groups that will certainly last a lifetime. Now is your chance. Get back in touch with the members of your teammates, the people that you contributed with as student athletes. Get them involved. Get them giving and voting. Take those 5 votes and allocate them back to your former program so they can continue to have amazing experiences here at Notre Dame, where the student-athlete experience is really bar none. Now, we're going to take things over to Sarah now. Things are happening in social media, Sarah. Things are heating up out there.
Certainly, Jonathan. Thanks so much. I think I heard you say that the West Coast was just kind of waking up in social media. Well, West Coast, if you'd like to participate, we're still doing the photo poll for your favorite study spot on campus. So the 2 options we've got, you can vote for La Fortune or the Hesburgh Library by tweeting #IndyLaFun or ND Hess. Now, the Hesburgh Library was leading handily with 80% of the votes. We're down to 67%, so cast your vote and we will see. Now let's head on over here to the social mosaic. What have we got going? So many great stories being shared on the ND Day broadcast. We've got Frisbee. We've talked about the dunk tank. We actually had a picture of the dunk tank earlier, so that's starting at noon. We're getting excited about that. We've had steady communication from the Notre Dame Club of Miami. Also, I had to laugh, Notre Dame Nano. They said go in, give, and cast all 5 votes for ND Nano. So, you know, it never hurts to ask, right? So, if you're going on ND Nano, would love to have all of your votes. And then I've also heard from the Monogram Club and the men's soccer team, as Jonathan was talking about, we've been getting lots of participation. They shared that they went to Zimbabwe last year. I think they called it service and sightseeing, and they would love to go on another trip again this year, so they would appreciate your votes for funding for that. One more thing to share about athletics. This is the Notre Dame men's basketball team, their Twitter page. Now, if you want to follow them, their handle is NDMBB, and I think this is kind of cute. They say, God, Country, Notre Dame, Hoops. Now, they've been preparing for Notre Dame Day for a long time, and they've each been posting individual videos. So we really appreciate their participation, appreciate participation of the entire campus, and you too. So thanks so much for watching, thanks so much for voting, and we will be back live at the top of the hour.